What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency Podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. This episode is brought to you by On Hands VAs, your go-to for client-facing, office-based virtual assistants. Their systemized onboarding process is key to seamlessly integrating VAs into your insurance agency. My name is Stephen Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance Services in Clinton, New York, and I'm joined by my co-host today, the one and only, you already know, hold your applause, Mr. Sean Fitzgerald, founder of LAF Advisors in Long Island, New York. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second community call. For those of you who are listening, we have about 20 of our Scratch Agency Podcast community friends on the call today. Join our Telegram at scratchagencypodcast.com. And a quick housekeeping note, if you're thinking, I was there, but I'm no longer there was a little technical difficulty, so please go back and join the community. It is my pleasure. We're going to get right into it and to introduce our second community call speaker. And I ask that you reference podcast number 57 for his story, where we talked about his story of his agency, how he got into it, the success that he's had. But we're going to get right into it with the automation king himself, Mr. Patrick McBride, owner of the McBride Agency. Patrick, thank you for taking the time to do this for us all. We appreciate learning from you, and the floor is yours.
Well, guys, I'm just a simple man trying to make his way in the galaxy. And if I had a New Zealand accent, I think that all of the Star Wars people in the room would understand the reference. But if you didn't, I'm a bigger nerd for trying to reference it out loud. So thanks for having me, guys. This is incredible. I will say episode 57, whatever that was, Stephen, you guys, out of all the podcasts I have been on, you are one of the top 2 or top 3 questions I had ever received. And it was brilliant. So just a shout out to you guys in some sort of recorded format outside of private chats and everything. It was an incredible time. So I appreciate that.
Not that it matters. Was it my question or Sean's?
It was definitely yours.
Okay. Not that it matters.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Yeah. So, we talk about technology a lot, and I jump on I jump on calls probably 2 or 3 times a week with agents, just kind of talking through the tech stacks, mentalities, process. And the thing that I get surprised with the most is when I get asked the question, there's always a solution, but the solution is dictated based on the actual problem. There's not one tech stack, there's not one platform that will solve that problem. I am as agnostic as possible when it comes to the actual technology used. And you'll see different pieces in our office that we may not recommend for you. But when we look at this, the conceptual standpoint of technology and automation has got nothing to do with the tech itself. It's got everything to do with enhancing the personal touch, with building out a workflow first. I am a firm believer that there is no true plug and play solution for any of our solutions. You might love how my process works and how my agency runs and how everything goes internally, but it's built based on my team, their roles, their personalities, their understanding. If I try to take that and put it in anyone else's agency, it will fail. It'll fall flat on its face because it's not their process. So a huge emphasis on making sure that you understand your workflows first before you implement any technology. And I know there's probably people in the room that we have had this exact conversation where you have to be able to outline your own process. You have to outline the solution you're looking for based on a process you're already executing. Now we can make that technology kind of turn around. So just to kind of set that stage from there, we want to revolutionize in our agency. Our goal is to revolutionize client engagement and operational efficiency. We have a really simple way of saying that, and it's get the F out. Now, the F stands for friction, unless we don't like you, and then we're going to tell you it stands for friction anyways, just to be nice, so we can be kind. Our goal is to remove the friction. So if we can increase operational efficiency, that means that my team has less steps. They have less touch points. There's less information for them to put in. They're only putting in information 1 or 2 times. Or when there's a notice of cancellation, they're only documenting that information once. And then the automation does everything else. And there might be a call or 2 in there, but how can we limit the touches our staff has to do while we're still communicating those pieces out? So a driver of everything we do is to revolutionize client engagement and increase operational efficiencies across the board. So and I guess taking this back, before I really kind of dig in here, the biggest piece is our agency's motto is we're a modern insurance experience. We're trying to create an emphasis on trying. We're trying to create a modern insurance experience without compromising on personal connection. And that's a big piece. If you watched anything we've done on YouTube or any video or short or reel we've ever recorded, that's kind of the tagline. When we do that, we have to be able to enhance that personal touch. We have to be able to enhance our current process. We did a workshop in the Midwest a couple weeks ago. It's only been 2 weeks ago now, where we worked for hours on, instead of just jumping in and making everything connect and zap over and automation and shot clock and all the great things that we can do and all the buzzwords, we spent 2.5 to 3 hours of a day on messaging strategy and what your agency's messaging strategy is. What's your rhythm? What's your sequence? How do you talk to customers? Do you say Mr. last name? Do you use salutations? How are you a hey, a hello, a hi, or a dear kind of person? What is that strategy? How does your agency communicate? I'm a casual communicator to our clients. I take what we do very seriously. I do not take myself very seriously at all. Hence the hoodie and the backwards ball cap that is completely against dress code, and the rest of my team would frown on me if they saw me or when they see me today, because they will. But the idea is making sure that our messaging strategy matches. So all of the automation in the world won't do you any good if it doesn't match who you are as an organization, right? I watch Taylor Garcia and his message on the internet, right? I watch the way he communicates. He and I have similar ideologies, but the way he communicates to his clients is different than the way I do. It doesn't mean he's wrong. It doesn't mean I'm right. It means we're different. And that messaging strategy has to be defined before you can do anything together. So I really wanted to set the stage on that side, making sure that I emphasize automation is designed to enhance the personal touch. And then you cannot do this plug and play. So when I say enhance personal touch, I'm going to give you a real world example. We actually just talked about this on a podcast this last week, where I had a client. This is our claims automation. So just to understand where this is going, our claims automation was such where we record information, we log it in our CRM, it triggers tasks to go out to the account managers. The account managers call the carrier, file the claim right there, and then they three-way call that claimant in, right? Especially when it's a home claim or property claim that exceeds deductible. So there's an instance where a massive derecho moved through the Midwest. That's a really big straight line wind. Think 60, 70 mile an hour straight line winds, not tornadoes, but straight line winds, knocked a tree over, 100-year-old tree straight over on top of a house. The wife calls and says, hey, I just sent you a text. A tree fell on our house. We need to file a claim. And so I'm talking to her and I see the text. She's like, I was supposed to go work out. My husband said, I need you to go to the store and grab these things before you do that. Can you help me file a claim? And this is an average, normal, every day. We didn't think anything crazy. So she made the comment, I was supposed to work out, but I had to run to the store. And the picture she sends me is a tree completely fallen through the roof of the house and sitting on top of a treadmill where she was supposed to be running. So this would have literally this instance would have killed her. So now I'm talking to a client who is emotional about the possibility of a consequence, or I guess she's dealing with the reality of what could have happened, right? Because that's what we're here for. We're here to make sure that promise on paper actually comes good when the time happens. So she's processing through emotionally. I'm talking to her at the same time I'm creating the claim in the system. This is clearly over her $1,500 wind hail deductible. We're going to go ahead and get this filed. I put it in our system. We talked for 20, 25 minutes. The only reason we stopped talking, because she was just venting and needed a release, was my team had called her with the carrier on the phone filing the claim. We hadn't even gotten off the phone yet, and the carrier knew it was recorded. They just needed to get her details and get a statement to go. So when we talk about enhancing the personal touch, I make a big joke that I don't like people. I'm good for 10 or 15 minutes at a time. After that, I tell the same jokes. It's the same stories over and over again. I'm going to laugh the same way or maybe tell that same joke over and over again. While I might not like to talk to people a whole lot, I have a deep care and a connection for those people in that 15 or 20 minutes that I get them. And having that deep connection and having that relationship with this client, my team got to do everything they did, but it was only triggered based on the automations that we had already built. based on a system we already have. So any questions on that? I want to make sure that this is open. I've got some things I want to show, but I just wanted to kind of set the stage and lay some groundwork before I really kind of dug into any of that. Does that make sense to everybody? Excellent. I'm getting head nods and thumbs up from the group. So if you're just listening to the podcast, that's kind of where we're at. So one of the things, the first thing that I would tell everybody to do outside of the whole understand your workflow, build your workflows, and before you do any automations is the thing that can make the biggest difference in your agency when it comes to automation is lead velocity. When someone comes into your ecosystem, how quickly can you respond and how appropriately can you respond? Lead velocity matters. So if I walk you through just a very brief verbal representation of this, if you go to the McBrideAgency.com and request a quote, you're going to request a home insurance quote. You're going to fill out a very small quote form. It's going to drop into our management system. That management system is going to say, send you a text and an email because you've opted in, you've done all the right things for the FCC and the TCPA and all the initials that you have to do the things for now. All the opt-ins are there. You opt in, you're immediately getting a text and an email saying, hey, Mr. Customer, we're going to give you a call soon, no matter what time of day it is, right? 12 o'clock at night, 5 in the morning, and I'm not a 5 in the morning guy, or middle of the workday. We're going to call you soon, but just to make sure that we get a jump start on this, if you want to, go ahead and click this link and you can start submitting your information. That's part of our process. That client can fill out a small form on our website, and within 10 minutes, we've collected almost 200 data points using specific technologies to grab that information, put it in our ecosystem. Now it's updated the lead in Agency Zoom. It's now ready to port over to our rater or push out through Gaia, which helps us run quotes with carriers who may not be on a rater. And all that information is happening. And I've got example after example after example of that happening in less than 10 minutes. There are times I can't get back to that customer in 10 minutes because we're on the phone. I'm on a webinar right now. Our commercial producers sitting at our conference table talking to a general contractor. Our personal lines producers making phone calls from the 200 leads that just got smart cycled this week. And our account manager sitting at the front desk answering phones and running reports, right? I may not be able to get back to them in 10 minutes, but they have an email and a text message automatically. And that email and text message have the same message. Hey, thanks for coming from this lead source. Here's a way forward if you want to do it on your own. And there's a massive if there. We get a lot of pushback on folks that don't want to do that. Don't do it. That's okay. If you're offended by a link, you may not be my client. You didn't have to click it, right? Understand that some people are going to want to click that link. Some people aren't, which is why we have the call set up too. But within that 10 minutes, we've increased that lead velocity. How an example of how we can do that in our teams, and I'm going to share my screen here if I can, when I'm allowed to. I'm going to share my screen on a couple of pieces that we set up inside our agency Zoom that we did. We set up what's called an assignment group. So our team is not massive. And I emphasize the assignment groups, no matter how big your team is, there are ways to set this up for scale and for growth. So when a lead comes in and it's a personalized lead, it's going to only go to Rachel Burdett. She is a personalized producer. That's the only person it's going to get assigned to. When it's life sales, it's a life lead that comes in, it's going to get assigned to the right person. And if it's a commercial lead, it's either going to get assigned to me or to Ray, who is our other commercialized producer. So every time that lead comes in, it's not only going to get assigned to the right person, the right automation is going to go out, the right email is going to get triggered, it's going to come from the right person, and then that task to call that prospect is also going to get assigned to that person. If I know that Ray is on an extended vacation or she's got 6 days off, guess who I'm taking out of the assignment group for the time off? And that's part of our, hey, Ray's out of the office for the next 3 days. Make sure to update your assignment groups. The same thing happens on our service side. So I just want to highlight this. I know we talk about lead velocity, but any type of velocity, if we can speed up that process, there are some tasks in our office that are licensed CSRs only. There are some tasks in our agency that are non-licensed CSRs. Right now, we only have Stephanie. She's the only person inside these assignment groups on purpose. And then renewal evaluations, that's part of our renewal process. She gets the first task, everything else goes to the producer. But this allows us to, number one, it allows us to send these tasks to the appropriate people. And if I wanted to, I could go add a second person inside that group easily and simply. Emphasis on the easily and simply is what happens if Misty gets terminated or takes a different role inside of our agency. Now I have to worry about making sure that every one of those automations and triggers that's assigned to a specific person has to get reassigned to someone else. And Agency Zoom does that really well, where when you terminate someone or you move them roles, that allows you to change who anything may be assigned to something else. But this helps with just adding someone in. Who's that licensed service person? Who's that non-licensed service person? So assignment groups are a massive, massive piece of lead velocity. When it comes in, who does it get assigned to? This doesn't need to go to your office manager to then get redirected and reassigned to somebody else. It doesn't need to sit in an inbox where you're busy and it gets bogged down. And no matter what email tool I tell you should be using, there's still email that you have to sort through to get to it. So assignment groups are the number one piece. The second thing I wanted to hit on was we're actually going to go into some lifecycle automations, and I'll show you what we do here. This is going to look really crazy. Our day one, when a lead comes in, there are how many different texts or emails, depending on a lead source, depending on if it's personal, commercial, or life. There's a lot of things going on day one that I won't really dig into, but the emphasis on when a lead comes in, there's a very specific message that goes out. We set expectations. So not only do you want to increase your lead velocity, but enhancing that personal touch is setting expectations. If Chris called my office and said, hey, I need to change this vehicle on my policy. And we just said, okay, and hung up the phone. And then somebody had to call and ask him what the VIN number is. Somebody had to call and ask him what the lien holder was. Somebody had to call and ask who the driver was on that vehicle. Somebody had to call back and say, hey, your premium adjusted. Or on the front end of this process, we lay out the expectations. At the end of that first scenario, Chris still got the vehicle added to his policy. There's obviously a lot of friction. We did not increase operational efficiencies, right? But at the end of that process, we still got the job done. The job got done. Vehicle got added to his policy. The premium didn't change because we didn't do it right on the front end. But if I set expectations, if I tell you, hey, Chris, thanks so much for reaching out. My name is this. I'm going to be your point of contact. If you want to get moving, if you're a self-starter, you can click this link. If not, I'm going to give you a call. And if I give you a call, it's no longer a surprise. I set the expectations and I delivered on what those expectations were. Now, setting expectations, the process doesn't change, but the client's expectation now knows what to expect next, which just increases our level of trust in their mind. Every interaction we have with our clients is an opportunity to increase the level of trust they've already shown us or to detract from any trust that we've already been given. Every single interaction does one or two things there. That's it. So this is an email example of what
Anybody else lose him or just me?
Yeah, he's not there right now.
All right.
Can you hear me,
You're
guys?
back, Patrick.
Yeah, you're good.
Yep,
you're back.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry about that. So we will put in the agency name instead of typing out the McBride agency. We put in the prefill in case I have multiple agencies under different business names. In case I change my business name because I have a friend that tells me I may have a great slogan, but the last name agency may be dead in the world. And I say maybe because we're proving it wrong. Or if we happen to make an acquisition and we want to consolidate under a single name. So there's a lot of contingency out there I don't really know. So we put my agency name in here, again, increase operational efficiencies and increase that level of trust. My name is this. You're going to work on these pieces. Here's our phone number. If you want to get started, click here. There's their signature. That text goes out and they get a follow-up email or a text. That email goes out and they also get a follow-up text.
I think his Wi-Fi went out again. Did you lose him, Steve?
Yeah. I think he's buffering back in.
Are we there, guys?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay.
I don't know
I'll
if it's
stop
the
sharing
screen.
my screen.
Yeah, I think it might be the screen share. Yeah.
Maybe. So the next stage of that really is setting expectations. The email and the text are going to say the same thing. The text is going to say, my name's Patrick from the McBride Agency. I'm following up on a request for quotes to help with the process. You can jumpstart everything by clicking here, or I'll give you a call soon. But now they're introduced to the phone number. So when I do call, it's not foreign, it's not weird, right? And our phone number, for whatever reason, in the age of VoIP everything, the phone number is not actually from our town. It's the next town over, 8 miles to the east of us. So we want the ability to introduce those pieces, setting those expectations, not just on the sales side, but also on our service side. When you submit a service request, hey, first name, we got your service request. We don't need anything right now, but if we do, we will communicate with you. And if we get to the stage where we're waiting on the client, hey, first name, we're still waiting on information. I can't complete this change without the completed information. Please call, text, or email us with the information needed, and we'll get this finished up. First notice, second notice, third notice, final notice. We're closing this ticket. The change has not been made. Coverage has not been bound. You are without whatever you asked for. We're setting that expectation. We're telling them what to expect. Automation is there to enhance that personal experience, and setting those expectations mean that I didn't have to manually do any of this. My team can spend the time on the phone with the client who just had a tree blow down on their house. And obviously this is a grandiose example, right? This is very, very hyperbolistic on that side, but it's real. That's what we're here for. We're not here for the everyday sling a new policy or a renter's policy that saves somebody $50 a year. We're here for when the tree falls on the property and they have to get all that property replaced. And they have to move into a new house and they have to, all these crazy pieces. So any questions on setting expectations or lead velocity?
No, I think, Patrick, I think that's great. And that's one thing agents should be able to take away is like I feel like that's one of the easier things to implement. If a new lead comes in, whether it's a purchase lead, which I do a lot of, and that's where a lot of my automation is set up, I need to do a better job of when somebody fills out the form on the web, that automatically goes into my AMS and agency Zoom, which triggers that automation of the automated text and email.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like the most simple place to start. Just make sure you have that connection. And if somebody fills out your web form, they get hit with a text and an email. Would you agree that's an easy place to start?
Those are the basics. And
Yeah.
I'm starting relatively basic there. The next two pieces I'll give you are
Cool.
They're on the same vein, but you have to start there, right? Getting information from A to B is what the automation is about. Your team does not want to take information that came through an email and put it into the CRM and the management system and the carrier and the rater. They don't want to. They're not going to. Let's just be real honest. They're not gonna. They're going to quote less carriers. They're going to do less work because they have to do it all so many times. They're just going to stop. And if you're a 1 or 2 man shop, you absolutely know the time it takes to do this work. I can't tell you, I worked for a captive carrier for years. Their system would shut down at 10 p.m. Central Time. I had 2 hours from the time I would put my boys to bed to the time my computer would shut down and I couldn't run quotes anymore in the evenings because I had to do all this extra work because there was no automation, there was no help, right? I had to do this 2 and 3 times for every client, right? So I'm rushing and rushing through, and at the minute I'd get to a hurdle, I would stop and go on to the next quote because I knew that I didn't have the time to do it. So allowing the automation, allowing these pieces to help offset some of that for you, it's just going to give you a higher brain capacity. You're not going to be stuck with that decision fatigue or task fatigue where I've already done this 50 times today. I hate to do it one more time. This is going to tomorrow. That one might be the difference between your producer validating or not, or you reaching contingency or not, or if we can speed up that sales cycle by 1 or 2 days instead of a 13-day sales cycle, maybe now you have an 11-day sales cycle, which means you can get more done in the same amount of time. So the next step is really a plug inside this system. So Sean, you brought it up with your bot ads. Some of the things you can do with this process is I have a web form and I have a CRM. And the information obviously passes from the web form to the CRM. And in that passage, I don't do anything native if I don't have to. What I would prefer to do is run this through Zapier or a webhook or some sort of server base where that information is coming into my ecosystem and then I'm controlling what goes, when and where and how. Because when I do that, one of the very first steps I'll do, Sean, if you went to my website right now and filled out information for a quote request, you will immediately be added to a custom Facebook audience, first and foremost. And it's all high level general branding because you came into the ecosystem and you said, yep, I raised my hand. I want some quotes. I want some information on your agency. You're immediately going to get hit relatively heavily for the next 3 to 7 days with Facebook ads or Instagram ads or Google display ads because I took your information and I put you in a custom audience. Now, that audience actually expands the further you get into the process. Why that matters on step 1 is on step 10 and step 27. I will move you to different audiences when you get to the I've sent you your quote and now you're trying to make a decision. Because now you're getting value-based ads. You're not just getting general ads. You're getting the reviews. You're getting the what's in it for me, right? You're getting the what matters to the customer beyond the savings. Here's what people say about our service team. Here's what people say when they request ID cards. Here's the mobile app we decided to choose or the client portal that we've decided to deploy for your ease of access. But setting that stage early now gets them used to us and it eases them into more and more robust communication on that side. So that's a part of every automation we have. If you're a new lead in our system, you automatically get added to a custom Facebook audience. Yeah. So step 2 of that is the exact same process. You will also get added to a email distribution list. Right? We're all doing content. And if you're not, we should be something, a blog and a basic email every week. Right? And with the advent of AI, there are some really cool tips to make that drive. That's a different call. But with the advent of AI and how to deploy technology and how to get technology to help you write content only matters if it's distributed. I could create the greatest image ever, right? So the Mona Lisa, I could have painted the Mona Lisa and I could tape it to the underside of my desk. It is still the Mona Lisa. Nothing changed about the actual artwork or the content, but the distribution mattered. If no one ever got to see it, no one would ever appreciate it. If no one ever appreciated it, it would never have the accolade or the lauding or the just that hype around it. I can create content and I could just shove it in a drawer or stick it on the back of my website, the mcbrideagency.com/blog/whatever my blog title is, which is what we're doing. All of us are doing it. And if you're not, again, you should, and we can point you to some resources to help with that. If you're not doing that, do it. If you are doing it, are you distributing it? So that same stage, the minute you ask for a quote, you're automatically opting into communication from our agency. Well, why would we not put you on the email list? You've already opted into being contacted about your insurance via text, email, and phone call. So we have the permission to put you in the list. We're going to put you in the list. If you opt out, so what? You're not my perfect client. I don't care. But I send an email a week to that list. 1,600. I just posted on Facebook a little while ago. 1,639 people, something like that, I think is the number. In excess of 1,600 homeowners are getting an email tomorrow morning telling them about solar panels on their insurance or on their home for insurance purposes. You want to know how long it took me to put 1,600 people in that list? It didn't take me any time at all because the automation did it because they put their own information in our system and then automatically added to it. So when you start simple, right, Sean, when you talk about starting at the beginning, what's the basics? Where do we start? Lead velocity, getting information from A to B. Create the assignment groups to get the information to the right people, not directly to a specific person, because people will change in our agencies. They will. People will grow. They'll take on different roles. If they either leave, take a different role somewhere else, or grow inside our agency and take on more responsibility, that's fantastic. Don't ever let anything be hamstrung to a specific person. So I never assign anything to an individual unless that individual is me, because I'm not changing my position in the agency, right? I'll always be the owner of the McBride agency, right? I'm the McBride of the McBride agency. Can't change that. Unless my kid wants to jump in and he could be Patrick for a while. That's fine. He'll hate it. But that's the perpetuation. That's another call too. That's somebody else's call. That's not mine. So creating that personal touch with the lead velocity, making sure people understand that they're real people, calling out the fact that things are automated. Like, hey, this is an automatic email. So what? We have an entire telemarketing pipeline. And when you book a call with us through our commercial telemarketing process, 3 of the emails go out, and the last one that they get before they meet with us is, yeah, this is automated. So what? And then we talk about our use of technology and automation and how we leverage that for their account in their case. You want to know how many people hate that email? Big fat 0 in case you're just listening. I've never seen anyone opt out at that point. No one has ever not. If they've gotten that email, they have met with us every time. And we have a 90% success rate actually getting the information to go through and do the process of a proposal, whether that's based on the quotes or other pieces and other risk mitigation factors that we're looking at. That email seals the deal because they see our use of technology and our deployment of it in a real way. And we're calling it out. So we talk about increasing lead velocity, the use of assignment groups. In doing that, we're able to set expectations, enhance our personal connections. We add those people to a custom Facebook audience. That same automation is adding people directly to our email newsletter feeds so we can distribute the content we're already creating. And if you're not creating the content, that's okay too. Create the email list so you have it when you start creating that content. This is a chicken and egg scenario, right? Or a horse and a chariot. You have to have both to make it work. But if you create content, you don't have anybody to send it to, content's worthless. But if you have an email list, you're not sending content, that email list is sitting and waiting, and it's worthless at the moment. But don't stop. Start doing them both immediately. So from there, guys, I mean, I've got some cool things that I can show and share. I want to make sure that my screen doesn't bug out, but that's kind of the core of what we do. And I've got some really cool. I've got a Zap that I'll show you a picture of. That's one of my favorite things we did with Google reviews and automated Google reviews and responses.
Patrick, let me ask you a question real quick
Yes.
before I forget. Bringing it all down to a basic level. You know, maybe there's someone on here that has no automation and they're going to start with the text and the email that go out, right? And build from there and build from there, and then maybe get to the point where you're at with your agency. What are things that you're doing on the back end, on the inside, to make sure that you're aware and tracking of like where the automation is? Because I know a lot of like when the automation first became relevant and became a thing, it was like, oh shoot, I did get back to you with a quote, but the automation went out to say, hey Sally, don't worry, we're still working on it, but you sent it out but forgot to turn it off. And like, so what are some tips and tricks for people that are listening of like, here's how to stay on top of what the automation is actually doing so that it makes complete sense for the user experience?
100%. I think the biggest thing we saw on the front end was specifically with our CRM of choice, when a customer replies, when a prospect replies, it would turn off the automation. And that helps me, instead of them saying, hey, let's meet Tuesday at 2. And then I would send an email the next day, hey, do you want to meet? And they'd get mad because they already committed. So we turned that off. And the biggest piece for me was learning that every opportunity or every lead needs to start with an action item. So I can send the text and the email, but I need to create the task for the follow-up to make the notes inside that task too. That way there's always something in front of me that says, hey, we're waiting on, I left Adam a voicemail. We sent the text and emails and I pushed it out 3-4 days, right? Something there is a visual reminder that I have to manually close. Enhance the personal connection, enhance the personal touch. The automation can help you communicate out, but if we're not communicating and we drop the ball, that task on the front end, the first thing that happens is email out, text out, task to call. They happen immediately. And that task to call gets recorded. If the customer responds, that task didn't go away. And that's still a reminder for us to either move it to the next stage or get in there and do some work, right? We still got work to do. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and that recorded call will go right into agency Zoom, which is beautiful.
Yes, it
Patrick,
does.
one thing I wanted to touch on that is for those that might, because I know you're using agency Zoom, I'm using agency Zoom. I don't know anything outside of agency Zoom prior to that. I was just using AMS 360 and hoping for the best. What if somebody doesn't have agency Zoom, can they still do these different types of automations that you're talking about? Like, is there a few other systems that work in a similar fashion, like Insured Mind, things of that nature?
So I need to, I can't answer the question on the assignment groups with Assured Mind, but the Zaps and you can do the same communication out as far as the text, the emails, that setting expectation. Yes. the
Okay.
zap from point A to point B, you can still build in. And by zap, I mean the Zapier connection, right? So
Yeah.
if we don't know, Zapier is the connection. It's the information connection highway of technology on the internet. Carrier A or company A has a platform, company B has a platform, but they don't talk to each other. So Zapier allows us to grab information from one place and put it in another in a structured format. So it's not just basic raw data floating around, right? So very, very simple. Um, so using the Zap, you can still create those same pieces where we're going to immediately add them to the Facebook audience. We're going to add them to the email automation list or the email distribution list. I don't love email at all. So everything we do, I'll show you some screenshots of some Zaps here in a second. Everything we do has a Slack notification because I just want to see that it happened and then I want to move on with my day. I don't need to delete an email or store an email or anything else, right? And even if I use Superhuman, I'd rather just go, yep, that's done and move on.
But there's a conference call going on automation that I wanted to be on.
Matt, can you mute yourself? Patrick, real quick on that, because I have insured mine. And I do know the assignments. You can assign the stuff too. But I don't know if there's anybody else on here that has insured mine. Brad, did you have it? I know you were looking at it. I can't remember. Oh, don't. Okay. But anyways, I know you can do the assignments for the certain task and most of the automation with the plugins and the texting and stuff like that. So, I mean, if anybody wanted to pick my brain on it, I'm probably using 10% of what I should be. So to be completely transparent, but I do have access to it. And like the basic stuff is all the same as Agency Zoom.
Yeah, I agree. I'm on insured mine as well. I have yet to find the assignment groups, which is really nice. I wish there was something like that because in your exact situation where I then have to go in and change the person that it's assigned to, it's just a lot of steps, because we've had a little bit of turnover with some producers and I'm like, oh shoot, hold on. I got to go back in and start changing some of those. So that group thing, I'm going to look into that a little bit. I don't know if they offer that, but that is very nice.
Yeah. I would love to know more on that. We have, this is not an advertisement for, but we did start a company that does this, and I have a partner that digs into the other systems. I'm great at mine. He digs into the other systems and can kind of help on that side. So I can reach out to our team to see if we can answer some questions there. But I'd love to hear more from both Taylor, from you and Steven on how that works. I love their platform. I love their mentality around it. I'd like to see more for sure.
Yeah.
So any other questions on that side, guys?
Yeah, I want you to touch on what you're doing at the end too. But any questions? We got probably like 15 minutes here. We can open it up. I don't know, Patrick, did you have anything else you wanted to specifically touch on?
I wanted to show, let me share my screen one time here. Maybe we won't bog out. So this is a really busy version. I want to talk about how you can get relatively complex or do things really simple. And actually, let's do a new share. I'm going to share the whole screen here. Let's minimize my Facebook so you don't get to see my conversations with Nick Berry and our jokes. So this is number one. This is a Google review automated response. So this is an example of how you can do something really, really simple. So there's triggers and responses for Zapier. And this is a screenshot. And I had just updated this to what you'll see kind of in the background here is the updated version. So number one, a new review happens in Google. It sends us a message in Slack. It just says, hey, Steven sent us, Steven left a review. It's a 5-star review or whatever. It's going to pull that star number. And if there's a comment, it's going to say what that comment is. So our entire team can see this. This is part of our culture of celebration, right? Everyone gets to see a lot of these pieces. This is not private. They get to see it all in Slack in real time. It's fantastic. We have 2 paths, and this is where things can get really, really fun. So we're going to talk about like some of that next step stuff. When you get to, if there's a comment, so you actually see, I don't know if this will go zoom in at all, but there's a comment. If the comment is true, if there is a comment that's going to take this path, if there's no comment at all, it's just like, hey, Steven left a 5-star review. That's it. There's no comment at all. It's going to say, it's going to send us a message saying, hey, we're going to respond in this way. It's going to wait a specified amount of time. So we put a delay in here so it looks real. So if Brad leaves us a review, in 17 minutes, there's going to be a response. And if he just left a 5-star review, we're going to respond immediately. Thank you for the insert star number here, number review. So if Brad left us a 4-star review, thank you for the 4-star review. And then it will reply right here in Google My Business.
Question.
So I wanted to show this. Yeah, answer.
So the Slack stuff is communicating with you and your team about what's happening, correct? I mean, I think that ties into my last point. So the Slack is saying, hey, we got this review. This is what's happening. And you have that all set up to automatically come into one of your Slack channels.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
So the one up here is, this is to the team. This is telling me specifically what that message is. So in case there's something wrong, the reply, before it posts that reply, I see it, then it waits 17 minutes and then it posts. So if something wrong, I can go in and make sure that I'm ready to fix it. So if it calls you Tina instead of, Tommy, we've had a time or two where on this edge of things where it finds that comment, we run it through ChatGPT to create a response. And we trained it for probably 6 or 8 months before I let it do the post automatically. So I'll show you what that looks like. So this is the same process. New business, new review, send to Slack channel. I made this bigger. If they have a comment, yes. If there's no comment, here. And then I did another set of responses. You can kind of see this. The reason there's so much here is if there's a 5-star review, so I filtered this out. If there's a 5-star review, it goes this direction. If there's a 4-star review, it goes this direction. So we're customizing the message back out, and it's telling us something specific. The further down this pipeline I get, if it's a 1-star review, we're not responding, and it tells me something very specific. Hey, pick up the phone, call this client now.
Yeah, that's good. Patrick,
The
one other thing.
2-star review. Yeah.
What? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. One other thing
go ahead.
while I'm thinking about it, to bring it back to the service level. I'm sure there's a bunch of us that are either listening to this that are on this call that we have Agency Zoom, we have Insured Mind set up, and we've got the birthday message, and we got thank you, Mrs. Smith, for becoming a client. We have all that stuff, but maybe it's not built out the way it needs to be, right? And with the amount of automation that you have and the success that you have had with automation, where do you think one should start of really hypering in and focusing in on that one thing, like the onboarding process, the renewal process, the new business? Like, if you had to say, I have the biggest ROI on a successful automation campaign for X, to give that scratch agent or person on the call listening to start with, where would that be?
Find your pain point. First and foremost.
Great
Don't
point.
look for the biggest ROI. Don't look for the shine. Don't look for the glitz and the glamour. I had this built out. So this fancy thing, I had it built out like this without the automated response. It would give me the response and I would copy and paste it for 9 months. I had this set for another 4 or 5. And I just broke this out over the last week where it's actually giving custom responses for star numbers. This is a 3rd, 4th, 5th tier automation only because it's not that important, right? What's the biggest thing in your agency that is sucking your time? How can you speed, again, lead velocity, response velocity? How can I speed up my service team? Where's the friction point? We try to increase that operational efficiency, which really just means how can we do a better job more consistently, right? All the fancy words in the world don't change what we're actually trying to say.
Right.
How do we do a better job more consistently? How do I make this easier for my client without creating a dramatic impact on our team? And how do I make this easier on my team without expecting my customer to go above and beyond and creating too much friction? Taking them outside of the norm too far, you'll push your customers out the door. They're going to go to somebody else where they can just call. Right? I live in the middle of I'm in a small town in the middle of nowhere, Illinois, 100 miles outside of Chicago. We're not what I would consider a tech-savvy universe, right? We're just not. Farm country, rural Illinois. We still use automation to enhance that personal touch. How can you find the friction point? That's your question. Stop looking at everything everybody else is doing because you're going to get envy, right? I do.
Yep.
Look at there are people out there that I'm like, man, that is awesome. I'm going to go build that. And then I have no time and I distract myself from what I should be doing, which is essentially leading an agency and selling policies and making sure they get serviced appropriately. Right?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Very much so. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Anybody else got a question? Brad, did you have your hand up there? I think I said something right before you were going. Bolt?
No, I was going to go back to your your email list. Is that going to existing customers too, or just prospects?
Both.
Okay. And you're sending that out once a week, you said?
Every Thursday morning, we send out essentially a newsletter based on the blog or blogs we've written that week.
Okay.
So
what service are you using for that?
I actually use SendFox. It was an AppSumo deal. It was a $49 lifetime purchase. I used ActiveCampaign for excuse me. I used ActiveCampaign for a really long time, but all I used it for was the email sending. I didn't like MailChimp. I don't like some of the others out there. So when I looked around, AppSumo gave a lifetime deal for $49 for SendFox, and then I did an upgrade. I paid $10 a month for 7,000 contacts, and I'm not there. So, like, well, $120 a year or $70 a month for our number of contacts was a steal, right?
Yeah.
But Brad, to answer your question, we're sending out content related to insurance. We're not asking for quotes in that content. We're not asking for anything else. So whether it's just good information for clients to have to reinforce the value of our agency or to showcase to clients, if they say no to me, I want to be in their inbox more, right? With real content, not let me quote you. But when their agent missteps, when the prices skyrocket, when they had a bad claims experience, who's been in their inbox every week 52 times over the last year, showing them real content and real value, never mentioning a brand other than our own, because I don't care about the brand. I don't care about the carrier. It's sort of, right? We have the right carriers. We're not like, third tier carriers. We're not slinging, B plus AM best rated carriers. We're slinging the right carriers, but that's the core of what we're doing is we're building a brand for us. Let me worry about those pieces. My customers don't need to know if we're selling Erie or Pekin or Secura or Travelers or Progressive. That doesn't matter to our customer as long as we do the job right. Let's put a good content out in front of them.
So what type of content are you putting in front of them when you generate that Facebook audience for a new prospect?
So front end is high level. It's really more, I think the ad that we have running to that now is the highest rated agency in the region. And we did that based exclusively off Google reviews. So we have 196 Google reviews, still ranking at a 4.9 or 5-star review rating. So we do that. We also just want we're running an ad to that audience that we're the region's second place. So we're, we try harder. So thanks for making us number 2.
I love
We'll, if we could make jokes, like we'll take a number 2 on the number 1. Got to be kind of careful. I have a stupid sense of humor that would get me in trouble a lot of times with some clients, but how can we, I'm not number 1. And you know what? There are 4 State Farm agencies that co-op to get number 1. Let them have it. I'm the little guy. I just killed 40, 50, 60-year-old agencies with massive books of business based on what we did. Don't think that the Scratch Agency podcast community didn't help. Or our email list, where that week's 2 weeks emails went out and had a little bit of content, and 1,600 people got an email that said, "Hey, we'd love your vote. If we've ever provided you any value at all, would you consider giving us a vote in our local community, whatever it is?" We have that content out. So that top level ad, Brad, really is just general branding. Who are we? Who are we? Who are we? Who are we? It's pictures of our staff with some basic information. Come see why we're the region's top rated insurance agency. Come see why we have 100+ Google reviews.
You know what I think so interesting about that, Patrick and Brad, to your point, like if you really sit down and think about it, there's probably a good amount that you can put out to make a weekly, monthly newsletter. Like think about client success stories. Like, I mean, that like client success stories, anything you're doing in the community, like the partnership with a new carrier, whatever. I mean, whatever it might be. And I think to Patrick's point, if you have it planned and templated and then add that to the automation, you got my mind spinning on that. That's an interesting point.
Yeah. What other questions can I answer?
I'll go all the way back to the assignment group. I was just wondering if you have, say you have 3 producers in that assignment group, are you sending those on a round robin, or is that just a communication behind the scenes that, it comes in and both you and Ray get it and you kind of decide between each other, or how does that work?
So if it's a brand new lead, there is a round robin process that will go through. If it comes from specific sources, it will automatically route to the individual producer. So if it's coming in, so we do, again, to reemphasize, we do a lot of telemarketing or cold calls for commercial prospects. They meet certain requirements, they have a certain number of premium, they're within our certain radius, and they are inside the industries that we do really well with our carriers, and we focus there. When that lead comes in, if they set the appointment, our process will automatically assign me to that lead. If we don't set the appointment, it assigns Ray as the producer on file, and then all the emails and tasks generated get assigned to Ray. And the further we get in that process, it really depends. So some of that, Brad, it's customizable based on your workflows. And again, if we go all the way back to the very beginning of what we talked about, you have to understand your workflow well before we build any automations, and you can make anything happen. I've said this before. There is more computing power on my cell phone than put a man on the moon. I should open up my computer every day and my socks should literally shoot off my feet with how impressed I am with what we can do with technology. There is no limitation outside of our own creativity and the time and or the money that we would invest in there. So there are some limitations based on finances, but that would be it, guys. I mean, there's nothing you can't do with this stuff.
So good. Anybody else got anything else to add before we wrap up?
Pat, just a quick question on SendFox. Do you get the metrics of like open emails and whatnot? We use Constant Contact and we're not in love with it at all. We notice like graphics don't even appear that we expect to appear in the emails. And do you get that data?
We do. And I'll be real honest, I don't send a lot of graphic heavy emails. So I haven't played with that a ton. We do a logo at the bottom. I want it to look more like a regular email when they get it, but I've never had any issues with that side. We still get open rates. Actually, I'm looking at today, so this last week's, how many we added, how many emails been out, what do they look like? Actually, let's look at the emails. Yeah, bounce rate, unsubs, right? Unsubscribe rate is still at like a 0.14, 0.16 because everybody gets added. So if they unsubscribe, I don't care. I'm not mad at it. The bounce rate's relatively low and the open rate is really good. I mean, we've got a 30, 40% open rate on what we're sending.
Wow.
Which again, all I care is that they see my name and my email in their inbox. They never have to read a word of it. But by God, when they've got an insurance problem and they can associate the McBride agency with insurance, that's all I care about. That's all I care about.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Can you just walk through that process again? So you're generating the email list off of your CRM and you're using SendFox to generate the email for you and send it, right? So you're copying and pasting that list into SendFox and that's generating the email that you send out and you're sending it out of there.
So we're not actually pasting anything into SendFox. So there's a Zapier connection that when a lead comes in, anytime a new lead is added to Agency Zoom, it will then populate into SendFox.
Okay.
And there's a filter there, right? If there's a company name, it goes on the commercial list. If there's no company name, it goes on the personal list.
Yeah.
So that way I'm not sending, Joe from Joe's Trucking or Joe's Electrical, he's not getting my, solar panel email for your home insurance, which one could argue that maybe he needs it, but I don't want that guy associating that. So I want him to know what I'm talking about. I want to narrow my focus with who's receiving what I'm saying, right? We're really good at this. I don't talk to my customers about this, right? It's tailoring your message to your audience. So Joe from Joe's Electrical gets the contractor email once a month, and that typically has 4 different blogs in it.
Sure.
Joe Smith, who is a homeowner who lives 2 towns over, he's getting the, what do we have this week is solar panels. Last week was crucial fire safety insights to elevate your home's protection. The week before, discovered how to fully protect your home with custom insurance options, right? It just, every week there's an email based on the blog we just wrote. Yeah. And that information is it's automatic into SendFox. But SendFox will give you that data just to send the email out. We copy and paste the content into there, and then we just change the link button. There's a button at the bottom, read the full article, that sends it back to our website.
Got it. Because
again, then there's the pixel data, which we didn't talk about much, but there's, high level. They've been to my website now. They've got there's the general branding. To get into the system, there's another level of ads that you can do. It's the same for us. You get to quote ready. Hey, Steven, I've got your quotes ready. We're going to send a different message out, but I don't have to manually change anything. I know the process. I know what I need to happen. How do I make sure to implement that in our process? So just, again, repeatedly over and over again, know your process. There's no plug and play anything here.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, we're hitting up on the hour here. And for everybody that's on the call, I'm sure Patrick will stick around after we turn the recording off. So if you have any questions more, but, on behalf of Sean and I in the podcast, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. I think the biggest takeaway for me was, like any piece of tech that we talk about, is like focus on your pain points, right? And if you're starting a scratch agency and you're only 1 month into bringing policies in, maybe you don't have to spend 24 hours on your claims process and your claims pipeline right then and there, so that was a kind of an aha moment for me. So I appreciate it. But Patrick, thank you again. Pitch how they can get in touch with you. And then real quick, just talk about that new project you're working on and anybody get in touch with you in regards to that.
Yeah. So I partnered, again, I'm on a call probably 2 or 3 times a week answering questions like this for agents across the country, and we'll never stop that from a personal standpoint. But with that position and what we'd kind of seen in the market, I partnered with Nick Berry and Dan Morey to come together and actually build out an automation side of things, kind of boutique automations for your agency, as well as kind of a full service CTO through a company called Tech Marketer. So you can, on that side of things, you can actually look at techmarketer.co, or you can reach out to me, Patrick, at techmarketer.co. You can email me there, anything for the automation side. We'll give the advice away for free 100% of the time. It's the work that costs money. So if you have questions, feel free to email me. Feel free to shoot me a message on Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm on each, or inside the community inside Telegram. Happy to answer any questions there.
Well, congratulations on that. I absolutely love when that happens. I mean, just on this call alone, we've got David Watson, who saw a problem and created Risk Advisor. We got Michael Cruz, who saw a problem and created on-hand VAs, and like scratch agents who are not only building their own agencies, but trying to help others. And that's the exact reason we do this podcast. So Patrick, thanks again for taking your time. Everybody on the call, thanks for joining us. Thank you very much for being a part of the scratch community. We learn something from each other each and every day. So make sure to check us out on the Telegram. That's another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. Most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, in your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.